Thanks so much, Joe. So I'm just like that. Yeah, so we're recording now. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Natasha and I am another consultant based pretty close to Joe, just out of Wingham. As Joe mentioned, I'm also a dairy farmer, and yogurt for us was something that we went through so much. I have 4 kids and they love eating yogurt. I reckon we were going through probably four like kilos, litres, I don't know how you talk, in yogurt a week, which, you know, is pretty expensive. And definitely if we were closer to the shops, I could have been going through more, but I refuse to buy anymore. Currently, we kind of go through phases, but currently I'm making a 2-litre batch every second or third day. So probably similar to what we're going through, buying it. However, it is so much cheaper. And for us, I mean, you know, not everyone, I know there's a couple of girls on here that are dairy farmers as well. So not everyone has access to awesome milk, but you can still make this just by, you know, buying milk at the shops. But certainly for those of us that are farmers, it makes it a hell of a lot cheaper again because, we're using our own product, which is pretty exciting as well for us. And, you know, for the kids to know that they're eating yogurt that comes, you know, straight from our girls. So all I've done in prep tonight, so the thing with yogurt and with the dairy-based yogurt, there's only 3 ingredients. So you've got your milk powder, and your yogurt, your starter. So when you start making your very first batch of yogurt, you need to buy milk powder, you need to buy your milk, and you need to buy yogurt as a starter. Now, it's been a long time since I've bought it, because what you do after that is just use some of your yogurt from your batch. So this was from a couple of days ago. You can see how, I'll get a spoon so you can see, hopefully you can see how thick and creamy it is. I wish you could taste it because it is absolutely the best yogurt you will ever taste. So Joe, you might just pop up in the comments. There's a particular starter yogurt that it needs to be full fat. And there's a really good one that you can get from Coles. You start with about 150 grams. So there's I think it's about 200 grams. That's not very expensive, that you can start with that one. So, but like I said, once you get going, you just use your yogurt from your previous batch and keep going. So all I've done is I've put 2 litres of milk in here this afternoon, and I've warmed it up to 90 degrees. Now, the recipe that I always use is actually one that Joe made up. You can find it on Recipe Community. There are recipes on your TM6. I haven't really had too much of a play around with them, to be honest, and I just find that this recipe is pretty foolproof. It works all the time, so that's just what I've stuck with. So 2 litres of milk go in. Use your warm-up mode on your TM6. Set it at 90 degrees. Put it on, let it get to 90 degrees, and then let it cool. So this is, what are we up to now? Just after 8. This has probably been cooling for a bit over an hour, and it's back down to 50 degrees. So you want it back to about 45 degrees. 50 degrees isn't gonna matter. I'm gonna continue with the steps at that. So all we need to do now is add in our milk powder and our milk starter. Our yogurt starter. We're going to give that a mix. I'm going to pop it in my other thermo server, and we're going to leave it to ferment overnight, or for about 6 to 8 hours. Now, a few things, and this is just from myself, from our own experience. You can add vanilla in. Thanks, Joe, for popping that link in the chat there. You can add vanilla in at this step. I have done that in the past and done it with vanilla beans, which is really nice. Haven't as late, purely just because I don't have them and kind of can't be bothered, to be honest. It's an extra step. It's an extra thing to buy, and the plain yogurt tastes pretty good anyways. You can also, add other flavours in or whatever, but I like keeping it plain because there's 6 people in our household and we all like to eat our yogurt differently. So I keep it plain, and then the kids and hubby and I can add whatever we want to it. So mostly for breakfast, we might add some honey and some, muesli or nuts and seeds, or if we're eating it, during the day, we might put some other things with it. This is the yogurt that I use, like if I'm making butter chicken that needs yogurt in it. or most recently we've been making lots of panna cotta with yogurt and coconut cream, and this is all the yogurt I'm using. So it's a great base for lots of other recipes as well. It really holds its shape and its thickness and stuff. So all I'm going to do is jump over to my scales. So we need 250 grams of milk powder. Now you can buy milk powder from the supermarket. This is the Devondale brand milk powder, and definitely both as a dairy farmer and just from making this, I would recommend that you buy a top quality milk powder. A bag, a kilo bag will set you back around $10, and you'll get 4 batches out of that because we're using 250 grams of milk powder. So definitely try and go with a good quality milk powder, and likewise with your milk. Don't go and buy the $1 a litre milk. Again, as a dairy farmer, it's not great for our industry. But secondly, you're not going to get a good yogurt out of it because the fat and protein components in it, aren't as good as as branded milk. So try and buy. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but even let's just say you're buying milk at $2-3 a litre. I think that's roughly what kind of branded stuff is, and all your cost is this. So $2.50 plus say $6. What are you looking at? $8.50 for 2 litres or 2 kilos of yogurt. That's certainly a lot cheaper than what you can buy it for, and what's in it and all the rest of it. There's no preservatives, no additives. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my 250 grams. Should be pretty close weighed out anyways. It's a little bit over. That'll be all good. And 150 grams of yogurt. So usually breakfast time, last person's getting their yogurt and it's a mad rush to go, quick, don't eat it all. I need 150 grams. Because if you use that, then you've got to go and buy it and start again. So there we go, about 150. Now I'm just going to put my lid back on. And I'm just going to give it a blitz. Now, I'm pretty sure, Joe, in your original recipe that's on Cookie Do, you actually add those things separately and mix them separately. Again, I kind of can't be bothered, don't have time. It's just another step. I just whack it all in. So I'm just going to set it for 2 minutes on 45 degrees just to keep that consistent temperature and about speed 3. I'm going to say hello. So that's just going to mix for a couple of minutes. Make sure that the milk powder and the yogurt is all consistently mixed in. And then I'm going to pop it into my thermo server. I'm going to wrap it in a towel because that'll keep it insulated and keep that temperature of 45 consistent for the fermentation period. Now, a few things to note on this. There are some recipes on the TM6, and the TM6 certainly has a fermentation mode, so you can actually make the yogurt and set it in the bowl. Hello. My issue with that though is that it's then in your bowl and then you've got to transfer it into a container, which takes that pot set away, because if you can imagine, it's set in the bowl and then you're tipping it all out. Also, you can't use your Thermomix for 6 to 8 hours because you've got your yogurt in there. There's some Baroma methods as well where you put your Baroma on and put your thermo server in there with your yogurt in it to ferment, or the mix shop sells little yogurt jars and you can do that as well. Again, I'm blessed that I've got 2 Thermomixes, but a lot of households don't. So you're not using it, you can't use your Thermomix for 6 to 8 hours unless you're doing it overnight. If you pop it on before you go to bed and then you've got it and it's fermenting while you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning and your yogurt's done. You can certainly do that. But for me, and just using so much of it, it's just a bit of a habit. We just put it in the thermo server, wrap it in a towel, and let it set that way. Now you'll know yogurt's a bit of a funny thing because it's live cultures that you're using. So excuse my children coming in and out all the time. It's a live culture that you're using. So you're going to have a few inconsistencies here and there, and you want to try and keep everything as consistent as possible. So making sure that your bowl is nice and sterilized and clean, and all those sorts of things. So that's finished. That's all mixed in, and I'm just going to pour that into my thermoserver. So you can certainly come and check on it, after, 4 hours, 6 hours. However, the longer it ferments for, the stronger the flavour of the yogurt, I suppose you could say. And, it's a bit of trial and error in the first few batches. If you make it and you leave it to set for 8 hours and you go, oh, actually that was a bit tart, I didn't really like that, knock the fermentation time back. Or you can also, some of the recipes have sugar. You can add sugar in at this step to give it that, bit of sweetness. But again, it's all kind of playing a bit around with it and working out what you like and what's good for your family and what works. This is what we've found works, and I feel like I'm in a nice little routine with our yogurt making. And yeah, it certainly does our family. So that's it. I will leave that. I've got a nice little spot on the other side of my kitchen in the corner on the bench, and that's my yogurt fermenting spot. And it sits there. And yeah, I'll probably get up in the middle of the night, check it, make sure it's set, pop it in the fridge, and it's done. Keeping in mind too that once you put it in the fridge, it's still going to ferment for a little bit until it fully cools down. Just saw a question. How do you stop stringiness? That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't seem to have that many issues with it. I think definitely using the extra milk powder. So a lot of the recipes say only to use, I think it's like 150 milk powder. Joe's recipe uses 250. And I find using the extra milk powder just gives it that extra thickness. You will find, let me just find another spoon. So this yogurt was made probably say 48 hours ago, 2 days ago. And it's probably, is that what you mean by stringiness? Like it's just starting to go stringy. I think that's just with age, it'll start to do that. It's still holding its shape fairly well. But when this was first set, the same as this other batch, it will be completely and utterly hot set, and you'll scoop it and it'll just be a full scoop. Sorry, dude, what are you doing? Does that answer your question, Ashley, or does that help a little bit, hopefully? All righty, I think that's about all from me. I've probably taken up too much time tonight. Awesome, no worries. I'll swing it back to Joe, and if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat box and hopefully we can answer. Temp outside is cooler or hotter? Do you change how? No, I've never, sorry, Joe. Yeah, I've never adjusted that fermentation time depending on the outside temp. I don't know, I suppose my house probably kind of stays pretty consistent with its temp, but I've never noticed a difference. But again, it's a bit of trial and error. So yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
No worries. Thank you. I think the only thing that I would add there is in making it in the middle of winter, making it in the middle of summer, I did find some differences in a thermoserver, and I opted towards setting it more in my Thermomix just to keep that consistency. But it really is, you're working with a live culture, so it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Tash and I are going to have a different result again because we're starting with the raw milk, hasn't been pasteurized or homogenized. It's going to be straight up different to what most of you guys are going to be getting off out of the shop. So it is important to keep that in mind. The other really important thing, and this goes for everything we make tonight, if you try it the first time and you don't get the right result, don't give up. I can vouch, I've made yogurt batch before that just hasn't worked, and I'm sure Tash has done the same. You are working with a live culture. It's sort of like a sourdough or something. Sometimes something just doesn't quite add up and it just doesn't work. So don't be put off. I've also done a batch where I thought it wasn't going to work. I thought I'd killed the culture, and then it still turned out fine. So just have another go. The big secret, I've added the creamy vanilla yogurt recipe into the chat a little bit further up. That's one off Cookie Do. I recommend with any of the yogurt recipes off Cookie Do, double the milk powder. It's really the secret to getting them thick, like Tash mentioned before. My own recipe, I double it in, but all of the cookie dough ones, if you double that milk powder, it will give you a heaps better result. And then how you want to ferment really just depends on the gear that you have. With the 2 plant-based yogurts, it's much harder to ferment in a thermoserver because of the longer setting period. But with the dairy yogurt, you can really get away with it. If you have a TM6 though, and you've got that fermentation mode, go for it. Have a go at just setting it in your bowl or setting it in your Varoma with your jars or with your thermoserver. Or if you have a TM5, you have got that automated yogurt setting as well, and you can cut that out early if you don't want it to go for that full length of time. So there are some different options there. I think what the best thing to do might be that we go through the different ways, the different types of yogurt, and then let's sort of circle back, and if you have questions around fermenting and what pieces of equipment to use and whatnot, then let's sort of cover off that at the end, I think, because you're going to see other methods as we go through the others. Very quickly there, I can see Linda, you're asking, if you don't have a thermoserver, where can you put it in? I would be recommending ferment it in the bowl of your Thermomix on the fermentation mode, or up in your Varoma. But why don't you get yourself a thermoserver? They're really easy to pick up as a host reward. You jump onto lots of our Zooms. You only need a couple of friends to jump on with you one week, and you get yourself a thermoserver that way as well. So that's definitely something I would be hinting towards. Thermoservers are absolutely awesome. But if not, you can still do it in here or up in your Varoma. All right, now we're going to jump over to Megan. She's going to teach you guys about coconut yogurt.
Yes, I am. All right, so am I up? Everyone can see me?
Yes.
Yep, cool. All right, well, thanks for having me tonight. So really quickly about me, I'm a mum. I'm on maternity leave. I've got a 14-year-old behind the camera making faces and a 7.5-month-old. And I plan to stick around for another 12 months. So I've actually had a TM5, so the previous model, upgraded to the TM6 just a couple months ago. And with the TM6, it's actually given me an option to do my yogurt different ways. So I've actually enjoyed that. There was no fermentation option previously. So when I did do yogurt, I've tried to do coconut yogurt in the TM5. And because it was in the mixing bowl, I felt like even the steps were different as well. So the recipes were different. I'd also done the dairy yogurt recipe, and just because it was continually stirring, I just didn't get the consistency I was looking for. So I've been really happy and quite surprised with the new change to the TM6. So I'm just going to quickly, I guess, run through the steps of it. And I've also got the end result as well to show you guys. There is a little bit of a difference when it comes from the dairy recipe we looked at to what we've got for the coconut. So I'll show you through that anyway. Any questions, please let me know. I'll try to look up and stay on screen, or yeah. So this is a cookie dough recipe. It is technically vegan, but I've also been able to use non-vegan ingredients. So it asks for like agar also works as a substitute. You could use gelatin. Same thing, it asks for maple syrup. You can use honey works. And that's what I love, I think, about these service recipes, is that there are some things that are a little bit of a no-brainer and you can switch them around. I've also, with the dairy yogurt recipes, I've also put it through like a Muslim wrap or like a nut bag, and I've drained it and made it into like a sour cream, or you can collect the whey at the bottom, so you can put that towards into like a sauerkraut, things like that. So a few different ideas. Anyway, getting started. So I've got all the recipes measured up. So just clicking start, it's going to ask for 400 grams of canned coconut milk, and it's going to ask the same for cream. In the tips of this recipe as well, and it does say to more or less go for the coconut ingredients that don't have additives and things like that in there, because the emulsifiers what we want is when it actually does go into the fridge, it needs to solidify. And when they add all these additives and things like that, it keeps it creamy, keeps it silky, keeps it liquidy, and we don't want a liquid yogurt. So that's what it's all about. So I have both ready to go. So I've got the milk here. I generally use Macro from Woolworths. That's an organic brand. I just like the flavour, the consistency, and it always works. I've used alternative brands as well, and it hasn't gone wrong either. So great analyzer there. So popping that in. And then 3 teaspoons of arrowroot powder. And I've got that ready to go. So that will actually thicken it up, and that's what we want to see. Yeah, we'll pop the link in there for sure. So arrowroot powder is gelatin.
Is this, sorry,
Yep.
is this just the coconut yogurt recipe off Cookie Dough? Or have you adjusted it a bit?
Oh, me? Sorry.
Yeah. This is just the coconut yogurt recipe that you're following? Yeah.
Yep.
I'll pop it in the chat.
So this is all also gluten-free. I do coconut yogurt because I'm off dairy and off soy because my baby is intolerant to those. But however, I used to do coconut yogurt buy it from the shop, $6 on average, $5 on special. If you buy, you can even buy the dollar. Just got to check the back on these cans of coconut cream and milk. If they are just extract from water, you are totally safe, and that'd be about $1.50-ish. So I could add up to about, let's say about $3 to do 800 grams worth of coconut yogurt. So that's really, really, really good. Where it's 500 grams for about $6. So keeping that in mind. So your arrowroot starch, which I've already popped in, that is going to be your thickener. And like I said, it is gluten-free. So again, I'm completely off that. It's asked for agar agar. So I've got that all ready to go. And like I said, gelatin will work as well. There is 2 different variations of gelatin. I'm not too familiar with, now one is more or less for your jellies, and there's another, I don't know, there's another that does something a little bit different. So the gelatin that you're looking at is for your jellies. So I've got a Nutri-Organics one. I buy it in a big pack. It's grass-fed beef. It's all the hurrah, but it only cost me a couple bucks. So I have endless amounts of that. Anyway, I'm going next. So 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Honey will work as well. And sugar. You could add sugar instead. A bit of raw sugar will work just as fine as well. So another great thing is if you don't have it, you don't have to run to the shop and worry too much. And then we're going to pop on the lid. Hitting next. Now this goes for 10 minutes. Want to take the heat up to 80 and speed 3.5. And I'll move that back a little bit. So that does, I might just stop that for a minute. So that's obviously go for 10 minutes. So it's going to take a little bit. So I just thought I'd show you the next few steps, but show you the end result. So it does have 10 minutes worth of cooking, but the thing is it's going to go up to 80 degrees. And then the next step is for me to actually let because it's at 3.5, it's a really good fast speed. It wants the temperature then to go down to 45 degrees, which is cool enough but warm enough not to kill what would be a starter culture. The starter culture it asks for in this recipe is 2 probiotic capsules. It doesn't speculate or what it has to be, what type of like what colonies it needs to be, what strains it needs to be. It works for me. It doesn't say to add any coconut yogurt from a previous batch or anything like that. This does work though. So 2 capsules of probiotic powder. So yeah, so it comes down to 45 and it'll ask me to put the probiotic into the mixture, and then it will, after that, I whip it on speed 4 for 5 seconds. So I'm just going to run you through what these little things look like. So I'll see through this recipe. And then it says to divide between 6 to 7 small glass jars, seal with lids, then place in the varoma dish. So I've got that here. So what it will ask for, I'm just going to flick through. It wants me to then pour this into these 6 or 7 jars. But what I do is I don't have any jars, but I've got a couple glass containers. This is one of those Pyrex containers. Works just fine. I've got a couple of these, and it fits into the varoma. So it's a nice fit. The steam still goes around it. It's a nice seal. It's not pushing against the lid of the varoma either. So envisioning that I've poured it up into my Pyrex container, it wants me to then rinse the bowl. It then wants me to put 250 grams of water. I've got here, and then 30 grams of lemon juice. I've also got that. And then it wants me to set the varoma up onto the mixing bowl here. I would have poured the yogurt ingredients into here, put the lid on. That will sit in there. I'll bring that over just so you can have a little look. So you can see it's a snug, comfortable fit. And then popping the lid on, hitting next, and then it's going to ferment for 10 hours, 70 degrees. And then once that's done, I'll be taking it out, just as is, and then in the fridge. So once it's finished, okay, this is, see, it says it down the bottom. It's a 1.5 litre. So you can get this from Woolworths. So it also says that it's a 6-cup capacity. So once the fermenting is done, you'll see it'll still be quite liquidy or loose, kind of like a coconut cream. It won't be grainy. I'm going to show you the end product. But when you put it in the fridge, give it a couple hours so it can go nice from 70 degrees, so it can come down to a nice fridge temperature, about -5 degrees, 5 degrees. And it'll be nice and set. And then that's it. Eat it, do whatever you like. And then this is the end result here. So this is that coconut yogurt. And that's it. So it's just the heating. It's a bit tricky to show you when it's got to heat for 10 minutes and then it's got to come down to 45 degrees before adding the probiotics. And so when it goes from that 80 degrees to cooling down, it asks that you remove the mixing bowls, the whole thing off the unit, so it can cool down quicker. And it does say that it'll be about 90 minutes. That's probably the longest, not so much hands-on time, but probably the longest time of, I'll come back to this. It usually doesn't take 90 minutes, but it tastes delicious. And like I said, the consistency is fantastic. I have tried coconut yogurt in the TM5 before, and I used to do dairy yogurt as well a lot. And the fact that I had to go into the mixing bowl, I felt like it just did not set the same. Not for me anyway. So I was really stoked when I gave this recipe a go, and the outcome was as is. It just makes life a lot more easier and a lot more cheaper as well, because not eating dairy is really hard. But I hope I've covered that all, and I hope that you've got a bit of a good reference. And it's not hard, it's not expensive. And yeah, if you don't have, you're welcome. If you don't have any little extra yogurt containers or anything like that, what you need to think about is it going to fit into the varoma, and is the lid going to fit snugly as well, because you want the full heat to be able to sit in there. You don't want to waste any time, any money, anything like that. So yeah, it is. It's that easy. And this is the go-to recipe that I choose. So yeah, that's it. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. I'm going to put
That's
myself up. You guys can see me as well. That is absolutely awesome. I'm going to tell you guys, I love coconut yogurt as well. And this was the start of the year, maybe the end of last year. I had lots of customers asking me, like, how do you make coconut yogurt? And I really tried to get it right myself. And I tested and tested. I'm talking like maybe 20 or 30 batches of coconut yogurt, and I could not get it right. One batch would go right, and then I couldn't replicate it. And I tried to swap so many different things, and I just couldn't work it out. And I'm going, why is this so hard to get right? And I'd done all this, like I was looking at different recipes and websites and all this, and I just couldn't seem to get it. And I'd ask Cookie, like, why isn't there one on Cookie Do? Surely there should be something on Cookie Do. And then the recipe community came out and said, we have been trying to get this recipe right, and it is really hard. It needs to be a certain amount of things in just the right order, otherwise it won't work. So the reason I'm telling you that is that recipe that they have there on Cookie Do, would have posted in the chat, is really, really good. Little things like a can of coconut milk and a can of coconut cream makes a world of difference. It doesn't sound like it would, but it makes a huge difference, and it will just be the difference between you getting like a grainy yogurt and not. So the arrowroot gives it thickens it up, and the agar or the gelatin or whatever else you're going to use, they've got just the right things in there to make it work. So it's a really, really, really good recipe. All right, now I am going to talk to you guys about cashew yogurt. So before I do, has anybody made cashew yogurt before? Has anybody ever heard or tried cashew yogurt? Pop it into the chat box. When we did our live class early this year and we made it and we had everybody trying it, there was some very mixed reactions as to what it tasted like. It's really, really different. But if you are going without dairy or you're looking for alternatives, it's really, really refreshing. It's super creamy, quite different to coconut yogurt, but still has all that great probiotic goodness that yogurt has. And it's made out of cashew. So it's just something really, really different. So what have we got? No. Okay. Heard of it, tasted it, wasn't a great fan. That's fair enough. Heard of it, but haven't tried it. Really want to do it if you don't like coconut yogurt. Okay, fantastic. So cashew yogurt is really similar to the last few that you have watched. I'm just going to stop that there and click up into my yogurt. So if you want to look on Cookie Do, this is called vanilla cashew yogurt. And to begin with this one, you need to soak your cashews. It's only 250 grams of cashews, so you're not using a ton. You can double the batch, though. It doesn't give you an awful big amount of yogurt, so you can double the batch. But this begins with 250 grams of raw cashews, and you just add a bit of salt, cover them with water, and let them soak for like 6 hours, 3 to 6 hours. And that activates your cashews, makes them really soft and great to use. And then you drain those cashews off, pop them in a mixing bowl. You add in some water, vanilla, salt, and then you cook that for 5 minutes. It only needs 5 minutes as opposed to the coconut yogurt, which has 10. It only needs 5 minutes because it isn't as much in there. You're only using a smaller amount. So if you double this recipe, you might need to increase that time. So if you're going to do that, have a look at where it needs to get to. So this says 5 minutes at 100 degrees. So make sure that it's getting up and hot enough if you double the recipe. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you're going to give it 5 minutes and it's only getting to like 60 degrees, it's not going to work. It needs to get to that, to hit that high temperature. So keep that in mind whenever you double a recipe like this. You might need to adjust that cook time, give it a little bit longer and let it hit that temperature. While it is heating up on your temperature circle, so your middle one, the outside ring will be going around and the small number above your main temperature will be telling you what temperature the bowl is up to. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, next time you're heating something in your thermi, go and have a look. You'll see the ring light up as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. So exactly the same as the coconut yogurt. You then need to leave it to cool down. So you heat up your cashews and your water and your vanilla and salt. You give it a blend, and that gives you like basically cashew cream. Then you let it cool back down. It'll go from about 90 degrees back down to around that 37, 40 degree mark again. So exactly the same as what you've just seen. And then really, really similar. This recipe gives you another way of fermenting it, which is putting it into a dehydrator. So that gives you another chance to, a different option if you have one of those handy. You'll see that I set mine in my Varoma as well. But you then add in your probiotic capsule or 2 probiotic capsules and a little bit of maple syrup. And this is the same. You could add in some raw sugar or something else there, a little bit of maple syrup, and then you just basically leave it to set. Now, big one with this is that this yogurt needs to set between 12 and 24 hours. I'm going to show you what this looks like at about 12 hours since I've put this on. The big thing that changes in the next 12 hours is the flavor. It'll go from a sweet, it'll start to get more of that tart yogurty flavor over the next 12 hours. So it's just something you can check and see, do I want it to taste more like yogurt or more like a cashew cream? Taste it, let it ferment a little bit longer if that's what you prefer. But it sets to quite a nice consistency. So I love a few little variations. So for mine today, instead of using vanilla bean paste as it called for, you can leave the vanilla out altogether and just don't make it a vanilla flavor, just like any of your yogurts. You can make it natural, you can make it flavored. I actually scraped out a vanilla pod or vanilla bean today and just put some of the contents in to give it a really, really nice vanilla flavor. But again, that's always optional there to how you want it to taste. And that was about it for that stuff. So let's show you guys what this looks like. So if I take my lid off, I'm using the yogurt jars. Now this doesn't make a huge batch, and I've already taken one out. So there's, what have we got? 6 in here now. So the yogurt jars come in a box of 8. But yeah, you can put, as many of them in there as you need to. I could have filled these up and probably gotten away with only just the 6 jars. But I love them in these because they give it it's a really nice little portion size, especially if you have kids and things that are wanting to snack on yogurt all the time. Having them in already a portion stops them from stealing too much. But as Megan said, if you can find a container that fits in here, you can use that as well. There are sometimes you can just get cheap jars, glass jars, or you may even have some that also fit in here and make them work. The benefit to buying the Thermomix one is obviously that they fit in here. All 8 of them fit in here. So I'm going to show you guys the consistency. So like I said, this is 12 hours just about in here. And you can see there it's super thick already. If I pull that out, it's a really, really, really thick yogurt. So it's really, really nice. And the big thing that will change now is just that flavor. So it is really one that you can have a play with and see how you like it. Now, alternatively to this, these are the glass jars. If you're looking to get them, get these from the mix shop. They just come in a set of 8 like this. Now, you can set any of the yogurts that we've made tonight in these glass jars. So you could set yourself dairy-based yogurt. You could layer it with coulis or put berries on the top or whatever it might be and set yourself 8 little gourmet yogurt jars in your Varoma. You could do it with the coconut yogurt and you can do it with this one as well. So absolutely anything you can use. And same thing then goes for the other things that you can ferment in here. So not necessarily the jars. Where's my white thermos server? Disappeared. This one here as well. So then you've got the white thermo server. So this is the same. You can ferment any of your yogurts in this one. And if you're wanting to get this, you can pick these up as a host reward. So these ones you can't purchase from the mix shop. You have to host a demonstration, host a cooking experience. And that can mean inviting a couple of friends onto Zoom, having a cook at your own house, having a cook with your consultant and a couple of friends can look lots of different ways. Chat with your consultant about how that is if you're wanting to get one. But this fits inside your Baroma absolutely perfectly. It holds 2 litres. So I love it because I can do a big batch of my dairy yogurt in it. And then your lid just fits on and it ferments the same way. So that's how this one works. You can also do, your big steel thermoserves and wrap them in a blanket like you saw earlier. So there's all the different ways you can ferment up in here. And the other way is in your mixing bowl. So on the TM6, you have this fermentation mode. So what this does is just stops the blade from spinning and then holds the bowl at that temperature. So this is where it's unique to the TM6. Now, if you have a TM5, you have an automated yogurt recipe and you can just start that. You can't adjust the temperature on it and you can't adjust the time. So if you start it, you just have to let it run its course. You can stop it early and pull your yogurt out early, but you can't stop and start it. So that's where you sort of lose control over that. But it will keep it at that 37-degree temperature inside the bowl to do that. You cannot ferment up on top with your TM5. That makes sense? Now, the reason for that is that on that automated yogurt recipe in your TM5, the bowl temperature will only go to 37 degrees and it will stay there. 37 degrees down here is not hot enough to create steam up here to keep whatever's up here at 37 degrees. It'll be too cold and it won't be warm enough for your culture to grow. Does that make sense? Yes? So when you have a TM6 and you're fermenting up the top, like I am, and like you've just seen the coconut yogurt, the bowl temperature is actually at 70 degrees. So it's a hot temperature down the bottom, which creates enough steam up here to keep this at about 37 degrees. That makes sense? So if you're going to go playing around with any of these recipes, and when you start to look on Cookie Do, if you're getting confused, you're thinking, I want to do that recipe and then I want to ferment it how they showed me. Big thing to keep in mind, and you can go back and watch this. I'll ask us if you forget. If this is set to 70 on fermentation mode, you need to be fermenting up the top. Your yogurt always wants to stay around 37, 40 degrees. If you put it in the bowl, yogurt mixture in the bowl, and you ferment it at 70 degrees, it is too hot, you will kill the culture. Okay? So likewise, if you put your water in here and your yogurt up the top, you only set the bowl to 37 degrees, yogurt won't get warm enough for the culture to grow. So that's your little catch to remember. 70 in the bottom means 37 up here. 37 down the bottom means you can only have it in the bottom. That makes sense. If I've just confused you, just call me. I'll stay back at the end if you can ask me any questions. But it will make sense. If you look through the yogurt recipes on Cookie Do, there's tons and tons there. You can sort of cross-reference yourself and see. There'll be, if you even just looking at plain dairy-based yogurt, there is mixing bowl method, there is aroma method. There are lots of all those different ways. There's some that'll tell you to take it out and put it in a thermoserver. The Cashew yogurt said to put it in a dehydrator. So all the different variations are there, and you can mix and match your recipes. So that's why I developed my own dairy-based yogurt recipe, because I wanted to put all that information in one recipe so that you could read through it, follow the instructions, and then pick, okay, do I want to ferment it like this, or like this? Because that's essentially what you can do with this fermentation mode, is just adjust it. And once you start to get the hang of your yogurt, you've done a few batches, you'll start to tweak it a little bit. And that might be that you're adjusting the flavors that you put in and that sort of thing, a bit more sugar, a bit less sugar. Maybe you'll try vanilla, you won't. Honey instead of maple syrup. All of those starts little adjustments. You may want to play around with your fermentation times as well. So your dairy yogurt, you can ferment anywhere from about 5 hours. So I really encourage you, as you start to get into making your yogurt, to start to taste it. So taste it at 5 hours and see what it tastes like, what it looks like, and then see what it looks like and tastes like at 10 hours and 12 hours. And how do you actually prefer your yogurt? Because you might actually find, once you start making it yourself, that you actually really like the flavor and the texture of a yogurt that's only fermented for 6 hours as opposed to 12. You don't get to choose that when you go and buy it from the shop. And if you're thinking, does it really change? I promise you it changes an awful lot, both the flavor and the texture that you end up with at the end. So have a play around with how long you ferment it. Same thing with the coconut yogurt and the cashew yogurt. Play around with those times a little bit and just see what you think of the different time frames. And dairy yogurt as well, you can play a little bit with anywhere from 37 to 45 degrees is that optimal temperature zone. So again, something else to play around with is you can just up that temp a little bit. Try fermenting it at 45 degrees and see how that goes. So lots of things there that you can start to play with once you get the hang of it. But biggest thing is don't be put off if your first batch doesn't quite work. We are here to help. So reach out to your consultant, say, I'm going to give yogurt a go. I'm going to let you know how it is. Tell them how it turned out, or use our Life Changes community page. One of the girls might be able to put that in the chat box for you now. So we have a group on Facebook, which all of us as consultants use, and then sort of all of our customers jump on there as well. And it's just a group for you guys to put your questions into, show us what you're cooking, all of that sort of stuff. So if you make yogurt and it works really well, pop a photo in there and show us. If you make yogurt and it doesn't work at all, pop a photo in there and show us, and then we can help you with maybe what went wrong. And you always help other people out when you do that as well, because they'll pick up on different things or questions there that they wouldn't have thought of and all that sort of stuff. So that's what it's there for. Your consultants are there as well. If they don't know, they'll come to someone else that knows and we'll get you the answer and help you. But our big goal, and the reason we ran this tonight, is so that you guys can be making yogurt at home. So please go and give it a go. Let us know how it goes and just keep on trying. If it doesn't work the first time, let's have another go and see how it works then. And we can also come to you or Zoom with you one-on-one and help you too with, let's troubleshoot what went wrong in your starter and all that sort of thing. And that can be done with your consultant as well. So we can do all of those things to help you out. I'm just having a little look at the chat box. There we go. Our group's just been popped in. Thank you, Ashley. There we go. We're talking about halving recipes. Awesome. And yes, Rochelle, exactly the same thing. Make 1 litre, absolutely fine. Won't change your it won't so much change the time of fermentation. You're still probably going to need around that hour mark, like around that sort of 8 to 12 hour mark for the fermentation. What you'll find is when you halve the recipe, like the time that it takes to hit that 90 degrees to begin with will be much less. The time it takes to cool that litre of yogurt mixture back down to 37 degrees is much less, and that sort of thing. For overall fermentation, it still has to grow that culture, and that still takes around that at 8 sort of mark. Yeah, perfect. So keep that in mind. Fermentation mode is still going to need that similar sort of time no matter the amounts. But again, play with it and just see what you think. But it is really, really forgiving. Give it a go, see what you think, chat with your consultant, and we can just troubleshoot and help you out if it doesn't quite work. I'm going to just finish off our recording.